Hello and welcome back to the Entertainment Vortex. We were at Brendan Theaters today watching Upgrade. Don't let the trailers fool you, this is not as much a horror as it seems. While this movie has some really intense action and a lot of fairly gory scenes, some really visceral stuff going on screen, it doesn't have those types of scares that would legitimately make someone who's looking for a horror movie jump or, get frightened in any way. You do definitely get some of the cringies, you kind of squirm around in your seat a little bit. With that being said, there's a lot going on and there's a lot that you could unpack, sitting down and actually having a discussion about this film. There's a lot more going on than meets the eye. The trailer really has this sense of it being kind of like a horror with a little bit of a brainless action kind of built in, but I'd honestly say it's more of a action sci-fi, and it has these really heady themes that really have a lot going on, and like I said, a lot that you can really unpackage and dig into. I could see there being different theories about the film. There are things that happen on in the third act that have these really heavy impacts that, like I said, it's something that you want to sit down and you want to discuss and you want to talk about. Obviously, we're not going to discuss any of the spoilers for this, but it was welcomed in this type of a film. It wasn't something that I was expecting, was to, kind of have my mind jumbled a little bit and to be, trying to anticipate things. And that was something I really appreciated, especially from a script writing standpoint. There's a lot going on.
Well, since Nick's not here this week to review this movie, I'll be taking his place, even though John Brasher here is our host. Thank you, JB, for being our host for this week. Now, for Upgrade. You might think it's a horror film based on the trailer. I think the trailer is slightly misrepresented, and though it is written and directed by Leigh Whannell, known for his Insidious films, really well done. I recommend them if you're a horror fan. Back to Upgrade, though, which is more of a sci-fi horror, and it surprisingly has depth to it as far as the story is concerned. There's the philosophy of where does the line begin and end with human condition and with AI, artificial intelligence. And in this day and age, the question comes up more and more. Where do we draw the line? How far do we take this before we lose control? And that is a good question. How far will AI benefit humanity before it ultimately becomes our undoing? Even great minds like Stephen Hawking have brought that up into question several times throughout their careers.
Logan Marshall Green as Gray was just absolutely outstanding. He had some really emotional, impactful moments, and anytime he's on screen, he carries the scene in ways that you wouldn't expect from this kind of a movie. He has this kind of almost like a wonder about him as he's dealing with these new abilities and all this other stuff. It has a really interesting vibe to it that you don't necessarily get from movies that maybe have a similar tagline to them. When I saw the trailer and when I read some of the synopsis before we went to see this film, it had some interesting vibes about it, maybe similar to RoboCop or something along those lines, and it bucks those trends really early on. It doesn't feel derivative when you sit down and watch the movie, which was something that was mostly put onto his shoulders. He had to deliver the majority of the lines. He had to actually do the action sequences, as far as what may or may not have been done by stunt doubles. But for the most part, it looks like it's him on screen a lot of the time, and he does an excellent job of capturing your attention. The visual style and the effects of this film were actually really good and not what I expected. It has some of that futuristic sci-fi feel. It's something that you feel like you can just get right into and you can enjoy. It's something that feels like it's not something that's too far outside of the imagination, and something that does seem fairly attainable as far as some of the cybernetic enhancements and things that they do to vehicles and all this other cool stuff. It has a feel of something that could actually happen in real life, which is something to be said for something that's considering itself a sci-fi film in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes you get into the fantastical and the things that maybe not necessarily are going to happen based on what we've seen with legitimate advancements in science and in technology. These things all seem perfectly plausible.
Production value-wise, this movie is a remarkable achievement considering its budget. And it is a low-budget film. It has that 80s noir to it, the 80s noir sci-fi. I often was reminded of Blade Runner due to the lighting and the grim, dark, almost dystopian look that the future has, because this movie does take place in the future, though the movie doesn't state exactly what year. I'm guessing 10, 15, 20 years from now. Technology is more advanced, cars are fully automated, they can talk to you the way our iPhones and Androids can talk to us today.
Now, this being something that does have that horror moniker on it, like I said, the reason why it does is that I previously mentioned, there is a lot of gore. They pick their spots, they choose what they do wisely, and the effects for them I don't know how much of it is practical effects and how much of it is a digital enhancement. They do a really good job of blending between the two and making it look believable. There were a lot of scenes where both Mike and I were kind of like curled up in our seats, covering part of our faces, trying not to see it. It was a little gruesome, but like not in a way where like you felt like you were gonna like run out of the theater throwing up or anything like that. I would say that it's not for hermetophobes. It's a little too much for maybe someone who has a predisposition to maybe becoming ill or fainting during these types of scenes. But it was definitely interesting, and like I said, the effects were done super well.
For a horror film, and at least that's its classified genre, there wasn't too much gore. I know JB said there was a lot, but compared to other films like Saw, also produced and written by Leigh Whannell, I apologize to Leigh Whannell fans if I'm butchering his name right now, but gore, surprisingly, it could have easily been focused too much on, but the gore is only there as a shock value. The way J.J. Abrams gave shock value of the sudden sight of blood on like TV shows like Lost. It's there for shock value. It's hardly there for the sake of gore porn. It's there to emphasize the AI's level of where it's willing to go to protect itself and the individual that it's helping out. For those of you who've seen the trailer, that's no spoiler. Believe me, there are plenty of twists and turns. Just when I think the movie is predictable, when the plot is nearing its end, suddenly it does a 180 and you're like, oh, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
Some of the secondary acting performances that I felt like maybe could have been a little bit better, maybe could have been cast differently. My biggest gripe I would have to say about this movie was the music. It didn't really set the scenes, it just felt kind of repetitive. It has this kind of like foreboding, like heavy, dark, electronic music kind of theme that kind of goes throughout the movie. And it doesn't really feel like anything new or groundbreaking, and in some places it doesn't feel like it even really matches the movie. It doesn't really take you out, it doesn't like remove your immersion that much, but it's probably my biggest gripe about this movie. The music could have been better.
Story, while not the most original, the twist in the end makes up for a lot of what I thought was predictability, a predictable plot. Turns out the viewer doesn't know, viewer like myself didn't know quite as much as I had assumed. So be prepared for that. In a sense, this movie is somewhat conclusive, but I hope they make another movie in that universe, further explore the philosophy and the deeper mythology of what the movie is trying to convey.
Overall, if you're looking for something that's action heavy, that has a little bit of gore, but that does have those sci-fi elements and that kind of brain-bendy, like twists and turns and like questions about what artificial intelligence is actually capable of. Those types of films, if you're a fan of any of those genres, I would say to go check this out. Check it out before it leaves the theaters. I want to see it again just to see if there are any things that I missed. I'm going to go ahead and give this movie a 9 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed it, and I was not expecting to enjoy this movie as much as I did. I really loved the lead's performance, I really loved the way that they wrote the script, and I really, really loved the setting, and I want to see if they're going to be able to potentially do more with this franchise.
Out of 10, I'm going to give this a solid 8.5. The reason I don't give it a full score or even a 9, no movie's perfect, and that's that.
If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We do a minimum of 4 videos a week, including movie reviews, Funko Pop news, and a bunch of gaming content. If you're interested in getting one of our t-shirts, the link is down in the description. And as always, we hope you'll follow us into the Vortex. We'll see you next time.